Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back. Happy Wednesday morning to you. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. This is what I call my morning musing. Enjoying second or third cup of coffee here early in the morning. Been going back over the parables of Jesus, specifically in Matthew 24, 32 and following. And before we get into that, I want to remind you, Preterist Pilgrim Weekend, July 16th through the 18th, 2015. The theme is Dispensationalism, Dangerous or Divine. And if you're coming and you are not yet registered, okay, please send me an email telling me, or a Facebook message, okay, that you're coming. We need to know because, as you know, we serve food. We need to be able to know how much food to order. So let us know as soon as possible. I'm telling you, Preterist Pilgrim Weekend is at hand. It's near. It's coming shortly. So let us know about that. And by the way, thank you so very much to all of you who have been expressing appreciation for this series that we're doing on the eschatology of the parables of Jesus. This really is a critical and an important study, and I appreciate your positive response. We're looking at the parable of Matthew 24, 32 and following, where Jesus says, "Now, learn the parable of the fig tree." In order to properly understand and appreciate the parable, we have to understand the context. One of the most basic presuppositions surrounding Matthew 24 is, okay, here is Jesus. He has been in the temple and he has pronounced doom on the temple. Your house is left unto you desolate. As they're leaving the temple, Jesus and his apostles, the disciples begin to show him, "Lord, look at these beautiful stones, the size and the beauty of those things." And Jesus says, "Do you not see all of these things? The time is coming in which not one stone will be left standing on another." The disciples are staggered. And they say, as they are on the Mount of Olives, looking back across the Kidron Valley at the temple, "Tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming," the parousia, "and the end of the age?" Now, here's what I mean by the basic presupposition. About 99% of the commentators say, wow, the disciples are so confused here. They cannot imagine the destruction of that temple unless it's at the end of the world, unless it's at the end of time. John Calvin, in his examination of Matthew 24, says it was impossible for the disciples to conceive of the destruction of that temple unless it was the end of time, the end of the universe. With all due respect to John Calvin, that is just simply false. How do I know? Well, because in 586 BC, Solomon's temple was destroyed. Did Jesus' disciples in Matthew 24 know about it? Well, they actually had a fast, a yearly fast, to commemorate that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they knew about that. By the way, that destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC was called the Day of the Lord, Zephaniah chapter 1. It was the time when heaven and earth were void and without form. There was no man. There were no birds in the air. Not literally, but metaphorically, hyperbolically. Did the disciples know that the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC was the day of the Lord? Well, of course they did. Did they know that it was the time in which, quote, heaven and earth were destroyed? Of course they did. They knew about Jeremiah 4:25 and following. Did they know that destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC was the day of the Lord's presence. Literally, the Greek word that is in the Septuagint, it was the day of the Lord's presence. Greek word prosopon, literally nose or face. Yeah, they knew all of that. Why then must we conclude that in Matthew 24, they believed the destruction of that Herodian temple had to occur at the end of the space-time continuum? There is no such connection. So when we come to Matthew chapter 24, and the disciples asked, in response to Jesus' prediction of the destruction of that Herodian temple, tell us, what shall be the sign of your coming? He had already said he was coming in the glory of the Father. And the end of the age. They did not conceive of that being. They did not perceive of that being the end of the time-space continuum. And very quickly, this is confirmed in Mark chapter 13, Luke chapter 21. The questions there are recorded thusly. Tell us, when shall these things be? When shall these things be? And what shall be the sign when these things shall take place? Same question, when and sign. The coming of the Lord was linked to the fall of Jerusalem. And the fall of Jerusalem, as we shall see, was linked to the end of the age. Not the end of time, the end of the age. So when we come to Matthew 24, and we see that it is a false presupposition on the part of expositors concerning the subject of Matthew 24. They insert an end of time into material cosmos, into the text, and say the disciples were asking about a sign or signs of the end of time, and thus Matthew 24, Jesus was giving signs of that event. Totally false presupposition. You have to be able to prove that the Bible predicted the end of time. You have to be able to prove that Jesus had predicted a literal physical coming of himself as a 5'5" Jewish man. That proof does not exist. Okay. We got a whole lot more on the parable of the fig tree, but it was necessary to look at the presuppositions underlying and preceding this parable for us to see the proper context. The proper context is the disciples' prior knowledge that the fall of Jerusalem was the day of the Lord, the presence of the Lord. And as we shall see, their prior knowledge that the fall of Jerusalem this time would be the end of the Old Covenant age. We have a whole lot more. We will see you on the flip side. Don't forget, order the material on the parables. You will love this material. Lord willing, we'll see you on the flip side.